Welcome back. The Nasarawa State Police Commissioner Bala Longe has refuted claims that Tuesday's robbery attack was targeted at the Deputy Governor, Dr. Emmanuel Akabe. The police boss explains that the Deputy Governor only ran into the attack on his way to Lafia from an official trip. He was speaking after an emergency security meeting where he also gave the assurance that the perpetrators will be punished.
It was not that the deputy governor was the target of what happened. There was a robbery operation, and the convoy of the deputy governor ran into there. And that was what led to the death of 5 persons, including 4 in the deputy governor's escort vehicle. But we give glory to God that nothing happened to the deputy governor. And not that alone, we want to emphasize that the elements that carried out that yesterday's operation will be phased out. We have started already, and we will get there. We will deal with them decisively, so that they will know that Nasarawa State is not a place for them to operate.
The state governor, on the other hand, has condemned the incidents and sent condolences to families of the policemen that lost their lives. The presidential election petition court today reserved judgments in the petition filed by Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and the People's Democratic Party challenging the election of President Muhammadu Buhari. The judgment date is to be communicated to all the parties. The presiding justice, Muhammad Garba, announced this while adjourning proceedings after parties adopted their final written addresses and made their final oral submissions.
Every available space in the courtroom is occupied by lawyers and litigants as they await final submissions in the petition filed by former Vice President Mr. Atiku Abubakar, who is challenging the declaration of President Buhari as a winner of the February 23, 2019 presidential election. First to make his final submission and adoption of the written address is a counsel to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Mr. Yunus Usman, who submits that the claims that the 2019 presidential election results were transmitted electronically is the greatest lie of the century. Mr. Usman, while adopting his final address, argues that the Electoral Act prohibits the electronic transmission of results. He prayed the tribunal to dismiss the petition for failing to prove its allegations of non-compliance with the Electoral Act. In his submission, the counsel to President Muhammadu Buhari, Mr. Wale Olanipekun, asked the court to dismiss the petition for lacking in merit and substance. He insists that there is no law that requires a presidential candidate to provide copies of his West African school certificate. Lawyer to the All Progressives Congress, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, while aligning himself with Mr. Olanipekun's submission, wants the court to dismiss the petition on the ground that the petitioners failed to prove the allegation of electoral malpractices. But the petitioners, led by Dr. Levi Uzoku, claimed that the results he obtained from the INEC server indicates that Mr. Atiku Abubakar won the election with over 1 million votes. He makes a demand on the court to uphold their petition. Although lawyers to the respondents declined speaking to journalists, Dr. Uzoku insists they have established their case of non-compliance with the Electoral Act.
This petition is like no other in this country. And whichever way the decision of the court goes, this case will define electoral jurisprudence in this country. We have concluded our professional duties. What is now left is for the court to study the evidence, read the addresses, the law, examine the authorities cited, and then deliver its judgment.
The die is now cast as the nation awaits the final verdict of the tribunal, having listened to arguments by all the parties involved in the petition filed by Mr. Atiku Abubakar challenging the election of President Muhammadu Buhari.
I'm going to toss it over now to Ibrahim Adra in Abuja for more on the news at 10. Hi, Ibrahim.
Hello and welcome. Well, let's begin from a federal high court sitting right there where you are, Marachi. It has granted an interim order to the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, AMCON, and the United Bank for Africa to take possession of a property in the Ikoyi area of Lagos, said to have been mortgaged by a former governor of Cross River State, Mr. Donald Duke, over an alleged debt owed the two organizations. The court also granted an order of interim injunction attaching any sums standing to the credit of the former governor and his wife in any bank in Nigeria up to the outstanding indebtedness, pending the institution and disposal of proceedings for recovery of the sum of 537.3 million naira, a sum representing the principal debt and the interest. Justice Chuka Obiozor granted these interim orders on August the 8th and adjourned further proceedings in the matter till September the 2nd, 2019. The order was granted following an ex parte application brought before the judge by AMCON and UBA. They told the court that the property was mortgaged by Mr. Duke as collateral in securing Mr. Duke's indebtedness to the applicants. Now to health matters. For the second time, Nigeria is on the verge of polio-free certification, having successfully interrupted the transmission of the virus for 3 years. Nigeria's hope to obtain the certification in 2016 was dashed when 2 new cases of polio were reported in Borno State. This time around, the World Health Organization as well as the United Nations are warning against any form of complacency.
Exactly 3 years ago, in August 2016, Nigeria's hope for the WHO polio-free certification was dashed as surveillance reports discovered 2 new cases of polio in Borno State, northeast Nigeria. The development made the federal government release 9.8 billion naira in order to strengthen routine immunization with a renewed concentration in hard-to-reach communities.
From polio.
Fast forward to 2019, officials of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency and development partners are seated in this hall to mark 3 years of interrupting polio transmission in Nigeria. This success moves Nigeria closer again to obtaining the polio-free certification status.
It is pertinent to state that the success we have achieved is still very fragile, as this WPV-free status for 3 years will have to be maintained through a robust and sensitive surveillance system for acute flaccid paralysis.
Ending all forms of polio across the region remains an unfinished success story. The low immunization rates pose a major risk to other forms of polio virus outbreaks.
To avoid a repeat of the 2016 experience, development partners warn against complacency.
While we commemorate this day, we must remember that the battle is not over yet. We have to maintain our efforts and intensify them to make sure the historic gains are sustained.
Nigeria will not be considered officially world polio virus free until the Africa Regional Certification Committee completes its regional evaluation. The next 6 months, therefore, are very important.
Prior to 2012, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Nigeria were the 4 countries with very high records of polio infection around the world. In fact, WHO report reveals that Nigeria accounted for half of global polio cases at the time. However, Nigeria was delisted by the WHO in 2014, leaving behind Pakistan and Afghanistan as the only polio endemic countries in the world.
Now let's return to Lagos, where Anwa Odo is on standby for more on the task before the new federal cabinet. At Top Business News.
You First. First Bank.
Thank you, Ibrahim, and welcome to the world of business. A professor of economics, Nonso Obekele, says that President Muhammadu Buhari's new cabinet should focus on fiscal economy in order for the Central Bank of Nigeria to concentrate on its core monetary policy mandate. He was speaking on our Business Morning program today. Professor Obekele explains why the economy cannot grow without macroeconomic stability.
We hope that the debates in cabinet will be how do you start to change the structure of the Nigerian export story. And you're right, it's not something that can be done by the CBN. The CBN is just a monetary policy authority. The CBN does not know how to teach farmers how to improve their yields. The CBN does not build roads. The CBN does not secure, the infrastructure. The CBN does not prevent informal taxation on the roads. The CBN can't do all that. Those are things that have to be done by the government itself. And we hope that within cabinet, there will be enough debates about how to do that and about how to allow the CBN focus on its core mandate. Let's not forget the CBN has a core mandate of monetary stability, of macroeconomic stability. And every time it gets distracted by trying to do something like, in the rice space or in the textile space, it loses focus on its core mandate. And that's something that is very, very dangerous. If you have macroeconomic instability, then it doesn't matter what else you do, your economy can't grow. If you have instability, it doesn't matter what else you do, you can't create jobs. So we hope that the cabinet will shift the focus back towards the fiscal space and allow the central bank to focus on its core mandate.
Let's take a look at equities market. It has ended midweek trading session in the green by a wide margin. Investors are still switching to bargain hunting for low-priced, high-valued stocks. Edidiong Ewang has the details for us.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. The swearing-in of ministers and handing over of their portfolios may have been the catalyst investors were awaiting as the stock market rebounded from Tuesday's losses, posting its highest gains so far this month. The all-share index rose by 1.09%, with the equity cap at 13.306 trillion naira. Now, midweek session also saw a higher turnover in overall transactions as 363.9 million shares worth 4.5 billion naira were exchanged in over 3,400 deals. The 7.03 and 5.49% gains from consumer goods bellwether, Nestle and Dangote Sugar pushed the sector higher by 3.46%. Next is insurance, which added 1.85%. On the flip side, the oil and gas and industrial goods counters ended in the negative territory. The shares of Tier 1 lenders, UBA, Access and GT Bank were the most actively traded. Meanwhile, these are the top three gainers and losers for the day. While the ministers have been sworn in, their portfolios have been given to them, it now behoves on them to get to work. Well, that's midweek trading at the Nigerian equities market. I'm Edidiong Iwang.
Thank you, Edidiong. Well, it's a similar positive close for most world-leading stock markets. Reactions are still on strong earnings from retailers, and it weighing minutes of the Federal Reserve's meeting. Let's see the closing figures for today. And that's Business News tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. It's back to you, Marachi.
You First. First Bank.
Thanks, Anne. Still ahead on the news at 10, U.S. President lambasts a Danish leader after failure to seal deal on purchase of Greenland. And coming from our London bureau, around the world in 5+. Newly appointed Minister of Youth and Sports Development Sunday Dare vows to address challenges and controversies in the ministry. Please stay with us.